It took me 4 weeks to sculpt and bling this Yoshi driving a go-kart for a 3D tumbler competition. But it was all worth it when he won by the skin of his, well, tongue. It's me, Crafty Ninja, and welcome to another nerdy sculpting video. Get ready for a ride through Mushroom Kingdom as I show you how I sculpt this blinged out polymer clay Yoshi go-kart tumbler. That was a mouthful. His sparkling star-powered rhinestones are sure to turn some heads, but don't let him fool ya. He's ready to dominate the track and claim victory with his blue shell power-up. Let's hit the gas and get ready for a ride of the lifetime with this star-powered Yoshi leading the way. Let's go! So the beginning of this tumbler started when I was in the second round of the 3D Tumbler Lounge 3D Tumbler Masters competition last year. And the theme for the second round was 3D blinged, and it had to be mostly covered in bling. And I thought it would be so cool to really incorporate the rhinestones into the theme. And I had this thought of doing a star-powered Mario Kart. But then I decided to switch it to Yoshi because Yoshi was my favorite. So I started with a Sculpting Ultralight base. Then I baked it, and then once it was cooled, I covered it in Super Sculpey Original Clay. For his legs, I used a foil armature in a curved or bent-legged position and covered it in clay. Then I added a little foot at the end of that leg. Then I added a little bit of clay on top to create that rounded part of his shoe. Then I took a rope of clay and wrapped it around his ankle to create that top part of his boot. Then once I finished one leg, I did the other. And here I'm starting my topper by using these two different size biscuit cutters to create the base that my head is going to be on. I like to bake it ahead of time so that I have a nice firm surface to build my head upon. And here I'm creating a hole for the straw, which you will later see that I abandoned this idea because I thought, who would be drinking out of this tumbler? Next, I use some foil and cover it in some ultralight clay to create the base of the head portion, and then I attach it to that topper base that I had baked earlier. Now I finally get to bring the bottom portion of his body to life, and I give it a nice white base coat and then paint it with this really cool green color. Making sure to leave the ring around his turtle shell white and the belly portion of him as well. Next I do the top portion of his boots in this orangish kind of brown color. And then I finish it off by painting the bottom of his boots yellow. And then last but not least, I finish it off by painting his shell this iconic red color. Okay, so for his arms, because I knew that they were going to be away from his body, I really wanted to make sure they were secure with armature wire, so I drilled a small hole in through the clay, and then I started to create those arms in the positions that I wanted them to be in. And when I got their arms in the position that I wanted them to be in, then I covered them in clay. I also wrapped a bit more wire at the end just to create some structure for the fingers as well. I have this hand pointed forward because it's basically going to be the steering wheel hand so that he can still drive and throw his shell at the same time. I have this hand facing upward because it is going to be holding a blue shell turtle in the palm of his hands, getting ready to throw it. So here I am just adding some more clay to give it a really nice sturdy base for that shell to sit on. Now that we have his arms sculpted, I'm going to start by covering some foil and some ultralight to create the base of that shell, and then I'm going to bake it. And while my shell base is baking, then I'm going to paint the arms the same green color as I painted the body. Now that my base for my shell is baked and cool, then I'm going to cover it in a thin layer of super sculpty clay. Then I'm going to take a snake of clay and wrap it around that shell to create that rim that those turtle shells have. And then I just blend it into that shell base. Once that's finished, then I take some more ropes of clay to create the hole where a head would go and also where the arms and legs would go. Then I take my taper point silicone tip tool and create the lines that go on the bottom of the shell. You can also do this with a needlepoint tool. Once I finish that, then I start to create the shapes that go on the top of the shell. They are definitely not symmetrical. Then I finish it off by adding the 7 spikes that go on the top of the shell, and then I put it in the oven to bake. While my shell is baking, then I cover my topper in a layer of super sculpey, and then I start to add the dragon scales that go on the back of his head. You'll notice that the straw hole changes in the future. It's because I had a really hard time deciding where to put it. But I decided to come back to that later as I add some foil and clay to the sides of his head to create those really nice round cheeks. And then I take a large rope of clay to create the lower lip that he has. He's gonna look a little weird for a little while. Then I recreate the cheek on the other side. Yoshi has these really tall eyes, so I put a lot of foil and wrapped it in clay and placed it right at the top of his head and then blended it into that base. Once it was nice and blended in, then I added the 3rd scale to the back of his head. And this is where I start to think nobody's going to be drinking out of this, so I'm going to cover this straw hole up. For the eyes, I rounded them out slightly and then took some rolled out clay to start to create those eyelid shapes that he has. Being sure to blend it really nicely into his cheeks and the back of his head. Then I take my slanted tip silicone tool just to really define those eyelids. Next, I'm going to finish off his head by wrapping some more foil with clay and placing it at the front of his head. I really feel like I should be a spokesperson for foil at this point. Now that Yoshi's head is finished in baking, I start to paint the bottom part of the shell, which is this tan color. Then I paint the holes for the arms and legs and head black. Because this is a blue shell, obviously we have to paint the top portion of the shell blue. Then I finish it off by painting the spikes and the rim around this turtle shell white. Now I get to finish painting his head, and I use the same color that I used for his shoes. I just added a little bit more orange to it. Then I paint his head green, being sure to leave the areas for his cheeks and his eyes white. Last but not least, I paint the black part of his eyes and finish it off with a little white dot right in the corner of him. Here's where things get a little bit crazy and outside of my comfort zone. I cut out 2 pieces of cardboard in the shape of what I think my base of the cart should look like, and then I wrap it in masking tape to really hold those pieces together. Then I created these little box things that go on the sides of the cart, and then I taped those in place as well. Also, to make sure that they're sturdy, I add some aluminum foil inside of them just to give it a little bit more strength. Then I create the seat and cut a little bit of a hole through the back for his tail to slip through. Here I'm starting to construct the steering wheel portion, and I'm just creating a little bit of a base for this thing to lean onto. I don't know what it's called, but it's where the steering wheel is going to be attached to. And once I'm happy with the size, then I tape it down. Lastly, for the basic construction of the cart, I create this box that I guess is like the trunk where possibly the engine goes, I'm not sure. Then I add a little bit stability inside. Then lastly, I add an armature wire for the steering wheel. Then when I was finished, I covered it in lots of liquid Sculpey and some super Sculpey on top of that. Once the thin layer of super Sculpey is baked, then I take some liquid Sculpey to attach some Sculpey Ultralight to my cart to really start to round out and shape my cart. Between Yoshi and the cart, this project used a lot of Ultralight Sculpey. Now to finish my steering wheel, I take some armature wire and I curl it into the shape of a circle. Next I'm going to thread another piece of armature wire through that loop where my steering wheel is going to go for the crossbars that go on that steering wheel and also to hold my steering wheel in place. Then once it's secure and in place, I cover it with some more Sculpey Ultralight. Now because this was a 5-week challenge, I was getting burnt out at this point and some elements of my cart did not get recorded. But after I reached this point, I baked it and then I covered it in a coat of polyacrylic and then spray painted it gold and also painted the steering wheel and the floor and seat black. And now to show you about 48 straight hours of blinging in about 5 minutes. Now the majority of the rhinestones that I used for this project were pretty much all clear AB rhinestones. I do not remember the size these particular rhinestones were, but they were smaller than the 2mm. For the black, I preferred actual black instead of the transparent, so I used these black ones that I got from PDB instead of my clear transparent ones. I used these really tiny rhinestones for the white part of his eyes because I really wanted it to stand out against the black. Part of his eyes and heads, I used the SS10s, and for his cheek and nose, I used the SS16s. Because I was considering adding some different power-ups that he could hold it in his hand, I added some magnets to his palm and to the shell itself so it would be removable. And here I am just powering through the many rhinestones I had to go through to finish this project. Here I just wanted to show you the wooden wheels that I used that I got from Hobby Lobby that I covered in clay to create the different sized wheels. I also want to state that I used mesh wire and clay to create the mufflers on the back. And here's one of the tires being covered in black rhinestones. And here he is, all finished. I am so sorry that I didn't record all of the details of the cart itself or the blinging of the cart. This probably took me about 4 weeks from start to finish to complete, and I was pretty burnt out and tired. I lost a lot of sleep to make sure that I got this done in time, so that's why some parts were just not recorded near the end. Though I will say I'm really sad I didn't record the little egg on the front of his cart because that is one of my favorite parts. Despite the fact that I did lose sleep over this project, I actually loved making this. And to make all the craziness worth it, I did win first place in this competition, so there's that. And that's how I made my Yoshi go-kart tumbler. I don't have him here in front of me because he's being lovingly taken care of by a friend of mine. And since I do not have him to show you guys, I have another project to show you in the same universe that I've been working on for about 7 months, and I got him done just in time for Mario Day, and I'm super excited to show you guys. And here he is, my finished Bowser tumbler on a teddy bear go-kart. I'm so excited to say that I finished him after 7 months of painstakingly working on him. And not only did I finish him, but I also finished him just in time to show you guys for Mario Day. He is my biggest project to date, and I am extremely proud of him and to be able to say that I made that. I will be posting my how-to on him to my channel in the future, so if that is something you are interested in watching, maybe you would like to subscribe to my channel so you'll be sure not to miss him. Anyways, I hope you all have a great day, and remember to stay crafty.